Good morning. Welcome to the Heritage Foundation and our Lewis Lehrman Auditorium. We do welcome those who join us on our heritage.org website on all of these occasions, and would ask everyone here in-house to make that last courtesy check that your cell phones have been turned off. It will be appreciated as we record the events today, always when the speakers do it too. We will post the program within 24 hours on our website for everyone's future reference. Hosting our discussion today is Jim Roberts. Mr. Roberts is Research Fellow in Freedom and Growth in our Center for International Trade and Economics. His primary focus is the production of Heritage's annual Index of Economic Freedom. He also studies economic and political issues in Latin America and Europe, as well as development assistance and nation-building issues. Please join me in welcoming Jim Roberts. Jim?
Thank you, John, and thanks to everyone for coming. And a special welcome to our online viewers who can tune in onto this discussion anytime, anywhere in the next few months. And we are sorry for a slight technical delay this morning, but now we're ready to get going. So I'd like to welcome back to the Heritage Foundation a longtime friend and collaborator in the fight for freedom, and that's Cristián Larroulet. Cristián is the Secretary General of the Presidency under President Sebastián Piñera in Chile, and has cabinet rank. Minister Larroulet is one of the original Chicago boys who created the modern and free and prosperous Chile, and it's an honor to have him speak with us today. He studied engineering at the Pontifical University, Catholic University of Chile, and then studied economics at the University of Chicago. Has long experience in the design and implementation of public policy. He was the Chief of Staff of the Minister of Finance, Hernán Bucchi, who was another one of the Chicago boys early on. And then for 20 years, he was the head of the Instituto de Libertad y Desarrollo in Chile, which is really the Heritage Foundation of Chile, and it's one of our closest think tank coalition partners in the world, really, and it's always good to have Libertad people here. Professor Larroulet also had a distinguished career teaching economics at his alma mater, and also the University Adolfo Ibáñez and the University of Chile, and visiting professor also at the Institute of the Americas at the University of California in San Diego. He is also was the Dean of Economics and Business at the University de Desarrollo in Chile, and is a member of the Mont Pelerin Society, as in the Academy of Social Sciences, Politics, and Morality at the Chile Institute, author of several books on economics, and has been the recipient of a number of awards in Chile, and also from his alma mater in the United States, the University of Chicago, honored him as a Distinguished Professional Achievement Award in 2010. And he's extremely prolific in other ways. Mr. Larroulet and his wife have 7 children, so he's a remarkable person, and it's going to be an honor to hear him in a minute. I want to note, especially today, attending our Senior Policy Analyst for Latin America, Ray Walzer, is here, and our Analyst for Latin America, Jessica Zuckerman, is also with us today. And so I thought what I would do would be very quickly review where Chile is in our Index of Economic Freedom through a few PowerPoint slides, and then turn the floor over to Minister Larroulet. So I'm going to have to do this manually, but as you know, we have 4 areas we look at in our Index of Economic Freedom: the rule of law, limited government, regulatory efficiency, and open markets. These are really reflect the mission statement of the Heritage Foundation, and we look at 179 countries around the world every year and see how they're doing in implementing and following these core principles, which we believe are the foundation for prosperity for all countries. There's been, since the index started almost 20 years ago, this is our 19th year, we've had a very good upswing in global economic freedom, although unfortunately since the 2008 crisis there has been a stagnation on that, and that's another challenge for all of us. Chile is number 7 in the world in our index, and something I'm sure the Minister will talk about at more length. And the United States, unfortunately, has been dropping for the last really 5 or 6 years now, and is just barely hanging on to the 10th spot in the index. Here's the powerful takeaway slide, the relationship, the correlation between economic freedom and prosperity as measured by GDP. within even regions. Economic freedom reduces poverty and extreme poverty in developing countries, and very important to remember. Some of these I'm going to skip past. But this is the map of Latin America, and you can see Chile is the most economically free country in Latin America, and is also the first member in South America of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. In the neighborhood, Chile, of course, on top. On the very bottom, Venezuela, tragically for those people. Argentina, not doing too much better. But Colombia and Peru doing well and improving. So following these good policies, and obviously the Chileans help some of their colleagues down there to think about the better policies to implement. We will be getting into these scores more. This is Chile in our index, which is available online. These are the actual scores that I'm sure that Mr. Larroulet will talk about more. So without further ado, I think we will, I will become the slide operator, and Mr. Larroulet, the floor is yours. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much, James. It's an honor for me to be here again at the Heritage Foundation in a very different position as a minister of Sebastián Piñera government. I want to tell you the process of reforms that we have made during our government, especially emphasizing those reforms in relation with the Economic Freedom Index. And at the end, I'm going to summarize, showing you the important advances we have made in the last 3 years in the basics of the economic index that Heritage produced for a long time. And with that index, help significantly public policies in different countries in the world. Let's start with what is the situation of the country when we arrive to government. You know very well that starting in the 70s, in the 80s, Chile made reforms in the direction of a free market economy, an open economy. Then was in the 90s the transition with a democratic government, also made a lot of reforms in the political area. And thanks to those reforms, the country had a very important rate of growth that you can see in the graph, especially at the beginning of the 90s. It was a very high rate of growth. 7.7% was the rate of growth of the country during the period of Presidente Patricio Elwin. During the period of President Frey, also a very high rate of growth, 5.5%. But if you look and you compare the rate of growth with the world rate of growth, you see a deterioration in the dynamic of Chilean economy. What was the reason of that? According to our view, reforms stalled and many incorrect public policies were applied. That period was called the Chilean nap because the country lose the capacity for continuous growing and given employment. And the worst case was the case of the government of Michelle Bachelet. You see there the rate of growth of the country was the same rate of growth of the world. Before that, we had much more capacity to give prosperity to our citizens. And that is the reason why, and This is the value of having a democratic system and freedom of people change to elect a new president, a new coalition. For the first time in 50 years, a center-right coalition arrived to government. What was the main purpose and the most important promise we made in that campaign and in that government? We said we want to prepare the country for finally being a developed country in this decade. Based principally in values and policies that promote economic freedom, personal responsibility, equality of opportunity, an active civil society, and rule of law and solid institutions, the framework of the Economic Freedom Index. Unfortunately, you know very well, we had the February 27 earthquake that produced a very important damage to our country. According to the records, is the 6th most strongest earthquake in the history. The damage, the economic damage, was calculated of around 18% of GDP. 18% of GDP. It was really a dramatic moment in the country. But the government decided to reconstruct the country and follow the same policies that we propose to citizens for being elected. And today we can say, and I'm going to show you some of the results of the reconstruction process. What we did in the economic area. In the economic area, we wanted to have a rate of growth of around 6%. Today, at the third year in government, the rate of growth is 5.9% on average. We promise the creation of 1 million new employments. Already we have more than 800,000 at the third year. We decided to have sound fiscal policy. We have an important deficit when we arrived to the government. Policies for promotion of investment. We introduced tax credit for research and development expenditures. A lot of microeconomic reforms for promote competitiveness of the country. And of course, reforms for open more free trade in our economy mainly through free trade agreements, through the creation of the Pacific Alliance between Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and Peru, and of course, working with the United States and many other governments at the TPP agreement. Some of the results in the economic area you see there. The rate of growth around 5.9%. We reduce public spending. During the government of Bachelet, the rate of growth of public spending was much higher in comparison to the rate of growth of GDP. The rate of growth of public spending was on average 10%, and the rate of growth of GDP was only 3.3%. We changed that reality, and today the rate of growth of the public spending is around 4.7%, and the rate of growth of the country was almost 6%. And thanks to that fiscal policy, we have an effective superávit, as you can see in the graph. We changed from a deficit of 4 points of GDP in the year 2009 to a superávit of an average superávit of 1% in the last 2 years. The rate of growth in investment also is very high. You see there in the graph, the last figure is 26% at the end of last year. When we arrived was around 22%. Then also an important increase in investment. Also, thanks to this process of creation of new employments, the rate of unemployment today is 6.2%, was announced yesterday. And that means for a country like Chile, we arrive already to the natural rate of unemployment. There's full employment in the country. We have a lot of a lot of migrants that are coming from other Latin American and European countries because this opportunity for having good employment, good possibilities of employment in the country. And in terms of inflation rate, also a very sound monetary policy that permitted having last year a rate of inflation of 1.3%. The target for the central bank is between 2 and 4%. This is the range, but also in terms of inflation, a very important result. That means a country growing very fast, but with the stability in terms of inflation and with an important effect in terms of the welfare of citizens, thanks mainly to this increase in employment. Other important reforms are the microeconomic reforms, especially for trying to promote entrepreneurship. We did a lot of reforms. I'm going to emphasize only one. You know very well the Doing Business Index made by the World Bank. In that index, we were in the middle of the ranking because of the regulations for the creation of new enterprises. We debate at the Congress, and finally, thanks to 2 bills, we reduced from 27 days for start a new business to only 1 day. Today, the country is in the same position with New Zealand, that it takes only 1 day to the creation of new ventures. The other area of reforms are the social areas. And I'm going to emphasize only education. I'm going to emphasize education mainly because I'm sure you have seen, especially in the year 2011, that the country suffered from huge protests from mainly university students. What was the position and the proposals of those leaders of the student movement? In general, they wanted to change our main set of policies in education. You know very well that we have a national voucher system for the primary and secondary education, that we have a system in which we have private universities, state universities, and we have a system in which you have to pay the full cost of the university education, but we have a system of credits and scholarship. What was the decision of the government? We think that our model is with the voucher system, with freedom of choice, with public and private schooling, and a subsidiary or a limited role of the state is what is our model. We think that we have to make reforms, but those reforms are very important in terms of maintain the basis of that model. Freedom of choice, public and private provision, the role of the families, important role of the families in the education of their children. Of course, because of the problems that the education system had, we made important reforms, very important reforms, and one of the most important actor of that process is our ambassador, Mr. Felipe Bulnes, that was the education minister in the year 2000, at the end of 2011 and 2012, with a very important role in that debate. We did many things. I'm going to emphasize some of them. First of all, as you can see in the graph, we improved and extend the voucher system. In terms of the coverage of the voucher system, and also in terms of the amount we spend, increasing the amount of the monthly school vouchers significantly. That were one of the most important problems, in the sense that for many years, the governments of the center-left coalition didn't increase the amount of the voucher. And that was the reason, an important reason of the protest. And then we decided we need to increase in real terms, and for the more vulnerable, poor groups of the society, the increase in the voucher is around, in real terms, is around 50% in the last 2 years. 50%. A huge increase in the voucher. We create new institutions for improving quality. We also make very important reforms for improve teaching through flexibility in the regulation, introducing higher standards and incentives. For example, in the year 2011, we approved a bill in which one, for the first time, principals in each of the schools were authorized to lay off 5% of the worst performing teachers. We implemented what we call beca vocación de profesor for giving full scholarship and other benefits to academically qualified students of education. And also we introduced other incentives in terms of salaries for teachers. At the level of the university education, tertiary education, what we did, the most important reforms are related with equality of opportunity, because the system discriminates, giving more possibilities to traditional universities in comparison with new universities, private universities, and also in comparison with what we call technical centers and professional institutes. We increased the amount of the number of scholarships, and we changed the system of credits for the students, emphasizing always the freedom of choice of the families and of the students. We eliminate all the discrimination between the types of university. It's the student who has to select the university that he wants, of course, with a minimum accomplishment of by the universities of certain standards of quality and responsibility. Those are then some of the reforms we introduced at the university and education level. Another important set of reforms are those related with poverty. You know, when we arrived to the government, the rate of unemployment was very high, and we decided to introduce a new set of policies for poverty reduction. Those policies are strongly different in comparison with a center-left government, that they apply mainly welfare state type of policies. We changed that in terms of introducing incentive-based policies for the reduction of poverty. And what we did, first of all, the most important tool is, of course, employment. The rate of creation of employment is much more significant for the 10% poorest group of the society. And also we introduce a type of negative income tax. In other words, it's a conditional cash transfer that is related with concepts like dignity, responsibilities, and achievements. For example, if you send your kids to the school, you obtain a cash transfer. If the kids is in the 30% better grades of the class, then you obtain the cash transfer. That means a new type of policy in terms of help to reduce the level of poverty. It's a policy in which one, the family, together with the help of the state, make an alliance for not reduce the poverty of that family. Well, the results you can see there also in the graph. In the year 2009, we had an increase in the extreme poverty rate from 3.2 to 3.7, and that was the extreme poverty rate. And in the poverty rate, there was an increase from 13.7 to 15.1, and now in the year 2011, we have again a reduction in the rate of poverty. Finally, let me talk a little bit very quickly about the earthquake reconstruction. It has been a success story, using also our principles and our ideas. Instead of the typical socialist solution of, let's say, the state is going to do everything, we maintain our voucher system. We have a voucher system for housing in the country. We maintain that voucher system. We permitted the family decisions of which type of house they wanted, in which place of the city they wanted the reconstruction of the house. And today, 87% of the overall reconstruction process is ready, and our target is to complete it in the year 2014. Other reforms in the area of institutions and the rule of law. One of them is we introduced voluntary voting in the year 2011. We introduced in the year 2012 a system of formal primary for election of candidates. And also we are working in a very intensive way for extend through the legislation, more transparency in the different levels of the government, the judiciary system, and also the Congress. And we are working in projects related with blind trust regulation, lobbying, and other things that promote transparency and reduce the risk of corruption. Well, let's see the results in terms of the most important world index that can show in a very synthetic way the advances that we have made in these 3 years. First of all, James already explained the case of Chile, but you can see there in the graph the evolution of the economic freedom index of Chile in comparison with the United States index. And you can see two things. First of all, that in the United States you have an important reduction in the index. That means less economic freedom. And in the case of Chile, we were stagnated during many years. And starting in 2011, you see the change. We improve our position. We are the 7th country in the world in the ranking today, and unfortunately, the US lose positions in the ranking. The other very important and very known ranking is the Doing Business ranking. You see there also the case of Chile in comparison with the OECD countries. Also, we have an important deterioration in the level of the index for Chile that is during the period 2006 to 2010, and now a significant change because of the reforms we introduced. As I told you, some examples, because there are many other reforms for trying to promote entrepreneurship in the country. And finally, you know very well the Transparency International Index that measures the perception of corruption in the world. And also, you can see there that the position of Chile was each year worst, starting in the year 2006. And thanks to the reforms we introduced by our government, also we have a significant improvement in the level of transparency and in the level of perception of probity in the country, and much better in comparison with the OECD average country. The main conclusion then is that despite the enormous challenges, our administration has succeeded in meeting our main goals in terms of the most important one, to permit that the country arrive to be a developed country at the end of this decade. And thanks to the main elements for success: improved rule of law, limited government, regulatory efficiency, and more open markets and more freedom. And thanks to the reforms we introduced, the position of Chile is today is very different in comparison with what was our reality in the year 2009. And it seems to me that this is, again, another example. Chile has been an example for many years, but also is another example in terms that you can have the case of a country that lose positions because of lack of reforms and lack of good policies. And that was our case, especially in the period that I told you, the period of between 2006 and 2009. And thanks to the change we introduced in the different areas of public policies, economic, social, and institutions, today the country is in a much better position with an increase in the quality of life of our citizens, and especially quality of life for the more poorest groups of our society. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Larroulet. That was for an informative and comprehensive presentation. I think all of us here would agree that if you and President Piñera came to Washington, you could help us a great deal. If you look back and you say that Chile took a nap in the 1990s, I fear that historians will look back to these years in the United States and say that we've fallen into a coma, I'm afraid. I'm sure there are a number of questions after such a deep and profound presentation on so many areas, and so we do have some time, and if you can wait for the microphone and identify yourself, I'd be happy to have some questions. Let me also say that Minister Larroulet has a book in Espanol, I think, no disponible en inglés, but we could probably make arrangements for you to get a copy through the embassy, perhaps, if you're interested. So.
We have some copies here if somebody is interested in reading Spanish. I tried to summarize the book in my presentation.
Please.
Hi, Michael Willey. I used to intern here on education policy issues, and a big fan of your guys' voucher program. I was just curious, have you ever had any legal challenges to the voucher program in your country? Have they ever been struck down at any level? We saw yesterday it get upheld, the largest one in Indiana, 5-0, which was a big victory here in the States for voucher proponents. Just curious, legal issues you faced.
Yes, of course we have a debate in the country around the voucher system. This student movement they are against the voucher system. Of course, the proposition is not so radical, but the most risky proposition, according to my view, is the one that said, why don't differentiate the level of the voucher, increasing the amount of the voucher for the state schools, only for them. And that proposition is very risky. You know, when you accept that proposition, you know, because of the dynamics of politics, that finally you are going to not have voucher system for the private schools. What we did is exactly the opposite. We increase the amount in real terms of the voucher system, but for everyone. And moreover, that is our answer, especially because, you know, we have a problem of quality in the quality of education in the public school system. What we did is that we reform, and that was a reform that was made before, started in the discussion during President Lagos' government, and then applied during President Bachelet government, what we call the preferential voucher. And that is perhaps an interesting experience, is that because the cost of education is different for the different income groups. Of course, it's much higher the cost for arriving to certain minimal level of quality. Then for the poorest group, you need a better voucher, a more significant amount of voucher. Then that reform was introduced during the period of the government of Bachelet, and during our government, we increased significantly that voucher. And then that is our answer. The people, the poorest people, they go mainly to the public schools. Then that is the intelligent way to improve the conditions also of the public schools, but without discrimination between the type of schools. That is our debate.
John.
John.
Do you need the microphone?
I think you do, yes. Well, you probably don't, but please.
Very informative discussion.
Identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm John Zemko with the Center for International Private Enterprise. I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about the political formula for implementing this sort of change. I mean, we know that it hasn't been easy for President Piñera in the public opinion polls, and certainly in this country and in other Latin American countries, the political debate often militates against governments implementing these types of reforms. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you manage that side of the equation.
Well, let me also tell you that we don't have majorities in the Chamber of Deputies and also in the Senate. We are a government that is minority in both chambers. That is much more complicated to approve those bills. My analysis of how we could make those changes, first, very clear ideas. Very clear ideas. I know that in Chile there is a discussion about this. Here in the world of think tanks in Washington also there is a discussion about that. But according to my view, having a goal very clear and very clear ideas for applying those reforms and for the design of those reforms. And that's an important, of course, merit of President Piñera.
What we sometimes call messaging, I think.
Yeah.
That we've been talking about a lot.
Perhaps one of, if you ask me, some of the mistake we have made is that in many occasions we were not so good to promote our policies and the results. The typical problem of perhaps marketing. But the government has a very clear program. And that program is very clear in the goals and also in the principles of our policies. And we had very tough problems because of the earthquake, because of the international economic recession. Remember that the case of Europe in the last 2 years. And also because of this student protest, student movement we had. That student movement started in the year 2006, at the beginning of President Bachelet. But we maintained the policies, and we didn't abandon those policies. And that is, according to my view, the explanation of the reduction in the popularity of the president, because he decided this is the solution. We have to maintain the set of policies that we know that they are the set of policies that permit improving the quality of life of our citizens. For me, that is the key element. And the other, of course, is the political dialogue, the construction of agreements at the Congress levels, and a lot of job, work a lot. Those are the key elements.
Dr. Walzer.
Hi, Ray Walser from the Heritage Foundation. We've certainly talked in the macro level, but maybe give us a little bit of the sort of the driving forces behind the economy, particularly which industries, which are going to be sort of continue to move this sort of job growth forward. What sort of sectors or what types of industry or commercial opportunities are you continuing to look at as you hope to carry this forward?
Well, Chile is a country with a lot of resources, a lot of natural resources. And then when the economy was open at the end of the 70s, that policy of having a free trade country has been maintained during 30 or more years. Then competitive advantage is the key element of the progress of the country. Our most important industries related with copper, mining, related with forestry, agriculture products, and increasingly also manufactured products, but are used as a base those natural resources. And in the last period, an important increase in the services industry, the banking system, the telecommunication system, construction, huge increase in, of course, partially because of the earthquake. But in general, those are the sectors that drive the economy. And in terms of employments, very important increase in opportunities at the service industry. Let me explain a little bit with more detail. You have to think that 30 years ago, Chile was a country of $5,000 income per capita, and today is 20,000. We are almost, when you talk that a country is a developed country, at the lower level, like Portugal, for example, is around 22,000 in purchase power parity measure, 22, 23,000, and we're just there. And that means, because of the income effect, an important increase in services, no doubt. Because also the country is becoming each day a hub in terms of firms that goes to the country to invest also in other Latin American countries. That's the reason why we are a hub for investment, foreign investment. Another important factor in terms of also growth is that we are a country strongly oriented to the Pacific. China, India are each day much more important for us. When we were a closed economy, we were concentrated in Europe and United States. Today we are integrated with the world, but increasingly more of our exports, they go to Asia. That is another important reform That's the Pacific Alliance, the Alianza del Pacífico. It's a new institution that we are pushing. That I explained already. Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. That is going to be another important institution in the international trade, in terms of, again, pushing in favor of the opportunities of the country looking to the Pacific area.
Let me just ask a question. I can't resist the opportunity. Earlier this month, one of President Piñera's counterparts in South America received his final promotion. And President Hugo Chavez has departed the scene. There is an election in Caracas on April 14th. I wonder if you could give us a perspective from Santiago of the situation, not just in Venezuela, but also the Chavez legacy in Ecuador. Rafael Correa was recently reelected. Morales, and Evo Morales seems to be well entrenched in Bolivia. You have the Kirchner government. I know this is the kind of question you'd want to get, you know, but even if you give us a sanitized version, we'd be interested to hear your perspectives, I think, on the future there.
Well, Chile is a Latin American countries, good friend of every of the countries in Latin America. We are a democratic country. We maintain the traditional position of respect to the governments of other countries, and then we have differences, of course. We have different type of policies with countries like Venezuela. Everybody knows that. President Piñera has said that, but of course for us the most important value in this sense is to respect the position of the other countries.
Yeah, maybe one or two more questions. I think we have our visiting scholar from Bolivia here, actually.
Thank you. Minister, I have a question. What do you think are the...
Identify yourself.
Sergio Daga with the Heritage Foundation. And what do you think are the biggest challenge for the center-right alliance for the upcoming elections in Chile?
Well, good question. I was waiting for that question. You know, this year is an electoral year. We are going to have parliament and presidential elections in the month of November. We have a lot of candidates from the center-right. We have two former ministers of the President Piñera government, Mr. Andrés Alamán and Mr. Lawrence Goldborn. And from, let's say, the opposition, we have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates, but there is a person that has, according to the poll, the better position, and that was the former President Bachelet. My impression is that this is going to be a very close election. Finally, we are going to have a second round in the month of December. And today, the former President Bachelet, the candidate Bachelet, has a very good position. But really, the campaign and the discussion didn't start. And now we are each week near the real start of the campaign. And according to my view, the possibilities of a new government with a program and a leader from the center-right are very high.
Well, much to do on the agenda, but we have, I'm sure we have confidence in your policies, and we really appreciate your taking the time to share them with us today. We wish you the best, and we want, please everyone thank me for this presentation. Or thank me and me.